This is probably the most butt-ugly YouTube video I've ever made. But I'm going to do it anyway because today I made a video in a beautiful location, and I'm not going to use that video because there was like a huge smudge on my ND filter and I didn't notice it, and I was lazy, and so I apologize. So I'm going to keep the B-roll that I did there. You probably just saw it already, or maybe you're going to see it after that. I don't know how I'll do it when I get to edit tonight. But I did want to talk to you about how it occurred to me that there's a big difference between a camera body and a camera's body. Meaning, when you're buying a camera body, that means you're buying a camera. Like any camera that's available, you're buying a camera. A camera body is simply, when you take the lens off, you have the camera body. That's the camera body. It doesn't have to have a lens on it. It doesn't have to have anything attached to it. It's just the brain of the organization. And when you add a lens to it, you have your camera setup, right? But it's really important to understand the camera's body, because in my opinion, that's the most important thing to think about when you're buying a new camera. And what I mean is, like, you got to think about where you're shooting, what kind of environment you're going to be in, you know, what kind of weather you're going to be in, stuff like that. How do you like to shoot? Are you going to be out in like hot temperatures or freezing cold temperatures? Are you going to be around a lot of dirt and sand and, you know, out in the elements and stuff like that? Are you going to be in water? Do you have to have, you know, do you have to make sure that it's weather sealed and, you know, protected and solid? And, you know, that's just something that you need to think about, which I think is the prime thing to think about when you're buying a camera. And if you're just going to be in a studio or in your apartment or something like this, and you're never going to go out with it, you're always going to be inside and you're always going to be in a controlled environment, then you could save a lot of weight and save a lot of money probably on a different kind of camera. Like get a ZV-E1, for example. You have the, you know, the abilities of an FX3 for $2,000 less, or get an FX30. Then you have the abilities pretty much of an FX3, except that you have an APS-C sensor, but you have that solid body with a fan, and, you know, it's sealed for everything. It's like, it can go anywhere. It's very reliable. It can run forever. And that's the other thing. You know, the body is pretty much going to determine how long the camera can run too, because how well does it, you know, deal with its thermal stuff? Like, how well does it deal with heat or cold? Is it going to overheat? If you're somebody, for example, who shoots with an external monitor all the time, you probably don't have to worry about overheating as much, other than perhaps the media that you're using to record to. The faster the media, the more powerful, the more chance you're going to overheat with that. So you got to think about that too, and that has to do with the camera body. Like I said, you have to think about whether or not the camera body has a fan. That's something I would think about. And so if I was just starting out, I would probably look at either a GH7, Panasonic Lumix GH7, or a Sony FX30, because these are solid cameras that you can get somewhere around that $2,000 range, and they are like completely capable to do pretty much anything. In my opinion, the GH7 is more capable in terms of anamorphic support and more codecs, and I think it's just more video assist features than the Sony, but the Sony probably has better autofocus, I guess. Maybe not now, because the GH7 has phase detect autofocus, but I know that the Sony is really reliable. And if you want to be in the E-mount, and if you want to be in the cool club, and if you want to be where most people are, like, you know, when you get on a set, most people are using Sony cameras. Let's face it. It just is what it is. But Panasonic is a special place, I think. You know, it's got more video assist features. It's got a more kind of pleasing color science, I think. I think it's just more of a filmmaking creative tool than the Sony camera, which is more like, you know, just a gutty camera that you can count on. And if you can learn how to color grade well, and once you get into post-production, if you're good at getting the image to look the way you want it to look, I think the Sony is awesome. The other difference is the Sony FX30 is an APS-C camera, which I think has a 1.5 times crop, and the GH7 is a micro four thirds camera. So in terms of the final output, the final image, you know, that you're getting, it's exactly the same. I mean, you can get the same image from both. They both shoot at high frame rates. I believe the GH7 is more capable than the Sony for that. The GH7 shoots an open gate, which is an advantage as well. I just think that, sorry about that, the battery died on me because I wasn't paying attention. So that's the other thing you might want to think about, camera, like the camera, like how long does the battery last on that camera body, which that doesn't really have much to do with the body itself, but I just think that that's probably the most important thing. Like I have a Panasonic S5 that I'm using right now, and I'm using a Siri 24 millimeter f2.8 APS-C anamorphic lens, and this is a pretty robust setup. The Panasonic S5 is kind of a beast, but I don't think that it's like, it's certainly not a true cinema camera. It's not a box camera. It's not made for, the most extreme elements, but I put it in pretty extreme elements and it's worked really well. So I would vouch for the S5. I also have a GH5, and I think the S5 and the GH5 are both, I would consider them cinema cameras, to be honest with you. And obviously, they're not technically cinema cameras. And in fact, I think, well, you can call them hybrids, of course, and they're both great photography cameras, especially the S5 is a remarkable photography camera. But with all the video assist features, anamorphic mode, open gate, although the S5 doesn't have open gate, unless you go into photo mode and you can get to open gate. But when I'm shooting anamorphic, I'm shooting in 4:3, which crops into 4:3 of the sensor, which still gets more of the sensor on a micro four thirds camera, but it's S5 doesn't have open gate, but the GH5 does have open gate. And so both of my cameras, have really powerful bodies. They're both weather sealed. So I have good camera bodies, and that really played into my decision to upgrade because I used to use a Sony a6400 and I love that camera so much, but the body, I knew that I was going to destroy that camera. As I became more experienced and I started doing more jobs that I wanted to do, and I shot feature, I was getting ready to shoot a feature film, I went out and I shot a ton of kind of developmental videos, like preparing for the film, and I knew that the a6400 would not make it through that process. And so I did a lot of due diligence and research, and I just, I learned a lot about the S5, and I was like, for the price and for what I was doing and for what I wanted, and with the IBIS, because the a6400 had no IBIS at all, which meant it had no stabilization. And I'm shooting anamorphic, so when I'm in APS-C mode, my rolling shutter is really incredible. I think it's 10 milliseconds when this camera is in APS-C mode, which is really awesome. So there were so many advantages to using an S5 for me. But if I was starting over, I would probably get either a GH7, because I love Panasonic, Lumix, obviously, or I would think about the Sony FX30 or an FX3, because the FX3 is kind of like a cinema camera too, and I think it's considered in the cinema line. I mean, it's not like an FX6 or an FX9, but I think in terms of what it can withstand and how it can be out in the elements and how reliable it is and how it's not going to overheat and it's not going to freeze on you, I think it's a great camera. So probably, if I have to upgrade, I don't know. Here's the thing. I'm shooting a feature film right now. I haven't started shooting yet. I'm finishing my script. I'm doing a lot of workshopping with another actor right now. I'm going through a lot of stuff. I need either 2 more S5s because I'm going to be shooting with 3 anamorphic lenses. And I want to shoot with them at the same time. I want to get 3 angles at the same time of one shot. That's going to be probably 65% of this film. So I'm either going to have to get 2 S5s or 1 more GH5 and then sell 2 of my full frame anamorphic lenses and buy 2 micro four thirds anamorphic lenses. And if I go the 2 GH5 and 1 S5 route, I'm going to save about somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500. So as long as I can match the GH5 with the S5 well, I might go that way. Or I'm just going to sell my GH5 and the 2 little lenses that I have for micro four thirds and get 2 more S5s, and then I'm set with my lenses. So 2 S5s are going to cost me more money than 1 more GH5 and then 2 micro four thirds anamorphic lenses after selling 2 full frame anamorphic lenses. I don't know if that sounds like crazy talk to you or if you're following me, but suffice to say, if I get 2 GH5s, I'm going to save about over $1,000 as opposed to going 2 more S5s. Because I don't have to buy 2 GH5s because I already have one. So I would only have to buy 1 GH5, keep the S5. Now I got 2 GH5s, 1 S5, 3 cameras, 3 anamorphic lenses, or I'm going to have 3 S5s and no micro four thirds and just 3 full frame. I already have the lenses, but I know it's going to be reliable either way. And I know I can match the GH5 with the S5 because I've done it before. And back to the point of the video, all of these camera bodies are robust. The GH5, the S5, they're like little beasts. And I have put the S5 through really extreme situations and it's come through like a champion every single time. So, and I know the GH5 is just as robust as the S5. They're about the same size. And believe it or not, the GH5 is actually a little bit bigger than my S5, but they're just really strong. They're weather sealed, like I said. And these Siri lenses, even though I don't think the lenses are weather sealed, they're really well built. They're just made of metal. There's no plastic on them. They're just really strong lenses. And I've put them in, really extreme situations as well. So the point of the video, if you're choosing a camera, don't sleep on the body of the camera. When you're buying a camera body, think about that camera's body. Think about what you need, what you're going to be doing. Personally, I think that's the first thing you should think about when you're buying a camera. Like, where you're going to be and what are you going to be doing? Because if you're not going to be outside of a studio, or if you're just doing like portrait work as a photographer, or, if you're going to be more under control of every situation, and the only way something's going to happen to your camera is if you drop it, then think about saving some money. Get an A6700, get a camera that, like a Panasonic S9, something like that you don't have to worry about so much. Sony ZV-E1 would be a great camera like that, more plasticky, but incredibly reliable, has unbelievable specs, has the same sensor as an FX30 for half the price. But if you're going to be out there like I am, in the snow, in the rain, in the sand, in the dirt, like in challenging circumstances, think about the body. Something that really impressed me, and I'm going to end the video with this, is that I ran across a video one day, a review of the Panasonic Lumix GH7, somebody who was literally in the middle of the Ukraine war. And I've talked about this a lot on my channel, but that just impressed me so much. I'm like, yo, that sells the GH7 to me. Like, look, all these cameras have incredible specs. If you need all the video assist features, then definitely buy a Panasonic. Get an S5 2X, which also has a really robust body. S5 II, the same thing. They're basically the same cameras. Really reliable, great cameras. Like, if you absolutely need video assist features, then I would go with Panasonic. If you need anamorphic support, if you need open gate, stuff like that. But if you need a powerful camera in your Sony, then consider getting an FX30 or an FX3 or something like that. Like, if you're out there, get yourself a GH7 or an FX30, something that you're not going to have to worry as much about unless something crazy happens. So I think body first, specs second, as far as I'm concerned, when you're buying a camera. And that's what I wanted to talk about today in my daily diary. But I had spoken about all of this in a beautiful location outside, but there was like a gigantic smudge on the ND filter. Kind of embarrassed about that because that's like really lazy and stupid, but hey, I did it. And I came in here and I'm shooting now with the Panasonic S5 and the Siri 24mm f2.8 anamorphic APS-C 1.33 squeeze factor f2.8 lens. I think I said f2.8 twice there, but I'm in my apartment. I didn't set up the lights or do anything like that, and I hope this looks okay to you. And that's all I got to say. Oh, you know what? Please subscribe. Funny I'm asking you to subscribe when I made no effort to make this look beautiful, but I promise I do better most of the time. Please hit the like button if you like what I do, and please consider joining my Patreon. That would be awesome, so cool. I would love that. And that is all I got to say about all of that.